I want to thank Congress today for the opportunity of speaking to you. Sadly, with the public inquiry due to start, it's impossible to attend, but I am making this statement as the lawyer for the family of Sheju Bayoh and on their behalf. I never knew Sheku Bayoh. He wasn't a rich man or a powerful man with lots of connections, but he had a stubborn family. His partner Colette, 3 sisters, a mother, his brother-in-law Adi, all of whom have refused to be patronized, bullied, lied to or silenced. At first, the Bayoh family tried to keep an open mind on what happened on the streets of Kirkcaldy on the 3rd of May 2015 at 7:30 a.m. Despite attempts to provoke the family, to insult them, they have remained dignified but full of rage. They are not asking for anything special, just the truth. Because without truth, there can be no justice. Sheku Bayoh was a well-liked young man who at the age of 31 had no previous history of violence. 6 police vehicles at Kirkcaldy Police Office responded to an alert following calls from members of the public that a black man was walking down the street with a knife and acting erratically. We understand that 4 police officers were the first to reach the scene and they engaged with Sheku. The family believe the police officers have a right to defend themselves, but any use of force must be at all times be lawful, necessary, and proportionate in the circumstances. But the family now know, as a fact, that when the police arrived, Sheku wasn't carrying a knife, he wasn't brandishing a knife, nor was a knife ever found upon him. We know that within 42 seconds of the first police officers being on the scene, that Sheku was face down on the ground, as several officers applied handcuffs, put on leg restraints and ankle restraints. He lost consciousness and he died. When Sheku arrived at the hospital, he was still handcuffed, with leg restraints still in place. 9 of the restraint officers from the scene returned to Kirkcaldy Police Office and they were placed in the same room for up to 8 hours. I met Sheku's family for the very first time 2 days after he died and told them that the road ahead would be a long one, full of struggle, full of heartache, and also full of resistance from the establishment. The police are guardians of law and order. They are given the powers of arrest, the power to use CS spray, guns, tasers, handcuffs, in reasonable and proportionate circumstances. But all those powers carry a heavy responsibility, which means that you are not above the law and you are expected to adhere to standards. And with standards comes accountability, not silence. It took 32 days before police officers agreed to speak to the independent investigators of the PERC. 2 years after the investigation began, the family publicly condemned the PERC investigators, believing that their inquiry lacked robustness, transparency, or impartiality. The inquiry then went to the Lord Advocate to complete, and the family believed that they were then betrayed by a system that in 2019 told them that officers would face no charges, not a single charge. Meanwhile, Sheku's body was covered with multiple separate injuries, bruises, cuts, lacerations, and a broken rib. And as the family stated, none of the officers faced a single charge. The family asked the Lord Advocate, did he really think that Sheku's life was so cheap that his family would simply walk away? A public inquiry is due to take place, starting on Tuesday the 10th of May in Edinburgh, 7 years after Sheku died, and the family want your support to attend the vigil on the first day and whenever you are able to after that, as this inquiry is expected to last over the next 2 years. Last year, thousands marched for George Floyd. Social media was awash with Black Lives Matter. Well, what the family are saying is Black Lives Matter in Scotland too. No family should ever have to go through the burden of losing a loved one in police custody and then to find out that the legal system fails them. Families should never have to rely on their own efforts to make sure the full facts about such deaths are established and those responsible for deaths are held to account. I want to conclude with the words of Sheku's mother, Aamer. She says she wants people to think of her only son, not as a man who died following a struggle with the police, She wants people to remember him as a bright young man who any parent would have been proud of. He was a wonderful son, a wonderful brother, an uncle, a loving partner to Colette, and a loving father to 2 young boys who will now grow up without a father. As a parent of 3 children, I know the pain you feel when your child falls and bleeds or is sick in hospital. How as a parent you desperately want them to be okay and would always take their place if you could. That love is unconditional, and I cannot begin to imagine that pain for a mother who has lost her only boy, knowing she will never see him again. Sadly, he is not by any means the first man to die in police custody, but if anything, I hope that Sheku's name does not fade from memory. That one day the name of Sheku leaves us a legacy that his children can be proud of. The dead cannot cry out for justice, but it is the duty of the living to do so for them. Thank you.